evening. Welcome to our Wednesday, May 9th work session. We'll start the meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance, so if you'd all please stand. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Our board vision states that Richmond Community Schools will be a high-performing, well-respected public school system that will make the community proud. Excellent student achievement, graduation rate, and attendance will be our hallmarks. The Board of School Trustees recognizes the value of public comment on educational issues and the importance of allowing members of the public to express themselves on corporation matters. So we have developed the following protocol. The board has set aside two 30-minute periods for public comment during each board meeting. Persons who wish to address the Board of School Trustees may reserve time on any board meeting agenda under public commentary by calling the superintendent's office by 4:30 p.m. of the business day preceding the meeting day, or by registering on the signature form the evening of a meeting. The maximum time for individual speakers is 5 minutes per person. The board expects personal decorum and factual information from the speaker. The president reserves the right to interrupt the speaker when the statement is too lengthy, personally directed, abusive, obscene, or if it interferes with the orderly conduct of the meeting. If more investigation is needed after the comment will be clarified at the next meeting. Do we have anyone signed up to speak?
No, we don't.
Okay. We're going to change our agenda a little bit tonight and move the consent items up. Do you want to do that before snapshots?
Sure.
Okay.
Sure. We can do that. I'd like to recommend the approval of the April 25th, 2012 board minutes. Also approve the recommendation from Human Resources, which includes an addendum as posted to the web. Recommendation for summer athletic camps from our athletic department. Recommendation for Richmond High School cheer camp. Recommendation to approve the retainer for Bose, McKinney, and Evans, attorney at law, and also approve the filing of reports on parent involvement.
Okay, do I have a motion to accept the consent items as presented? Aaron Stevens makes the motion and Pat Heine seconds the motion. Are there comments or questions on the consent items? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed?
And there is one that I would like to pull. You've already acted upon it, but we have a special guest who is no longer a guest after the action that you've taken, and that would be Lori Shaw, who has come to us from East Chicago. Ms. Shaw, if you'd like to come up here. She's joined by some teachers from Dennis Middle School because
nice.
She is the new principal at Dennis Intermediate School for next year.
Welcome.
So I present to you Lori Shaw.
Hi.
Hi.
Welcome to Richmond. Welcome to Dennis. Tell us a little bit about your background.
I left the medical field to go into education. I started teaching and was in teaching for 13 years in Northwest Indiana, moved to the Indianapolis area, and when I moved to Indianapolis, I worked with CEL, the Center of Excellence in Leadership of Learning. From there, while working with CEL, I received my administration license, started working in Shelbyville for a pre-K 6 building. After that, I wanted to have a little bit more middle school background, so I worked in Delaware County as an assistant principal for a 6th through 8th building. From there, moved back to Northwest Indiana. At the time, I thought it was the right move for me. But as you see, coming back down here is my primary focus. But while working in an urban community, I worked for a 5th, 6th building where we pulled in both sides of the city of East Chicago for the first time that's ever happened. A lot of gang activities, things like that. That was a big influence in that community. In the middle of all that, I had talked to our superintendent and worried about the kids being over age for their enrolled grade level. So at the beginning of this school year, my superintendent came to me and said, "You know when you said," and I said yes, and he said, "How would you like to open up a new school?" And so the school that I opened up is called Field Transition Center, and what it is children who are actually 2 years over their age of their enrolled grade level, and are either overperforming or underperforming, but yet they were passing one part of the I-STEP. And what they're doing is they're on a fast track. It's a standards-based school, and they're on a fast track to get to the actual grade that they're supposed to be in, and hopefully actually getting them to the high school quicker than what they would be in just their regular grade level. So that's a little bit about what I've been doing.
Does anyone have any questions for Ms.
Judd, why did you, what intrigues you about coming to Dennis and our new intermediate school there?
Well, you know, knowing that you're going to a bringing the fifth and sixth graders in, that is really interesting to me. And actually, after coming back down to Richmond, and my friends are all from this area, I'm really excited. But the welcoming that I have received from the family of Dennis has been unbelievable. Just the times that I've been down here, it has made me feel like I've already been accepted into the family, which is highly commendable for what they have already started doing. The data that they have been working on with student achievement, the standards that they have already for what they expect out of the students of Dennis. The parent involvement that they're starting to get acclimated back into the schools is highly important, because if we don't have our parents involved with their own children, we really are starting backwards then. But the teachers and the entire staff have a family bond of their own, and that really is the key to making sure of building those relationships with the students.
That's so good to hear. Anyone else?
Should be noted that she's been down here most of the day to find a residence, and I think you said that you were successful in that?
I found a place to live today.
Highly important.
I'm excited.
We're excited too.
It also should be noted that some of the Dennis staff is back there today to greet Ms. Shaw, but it's also important to know that they had a hand in the selection process of their new principal. They met several times to review questions. They actually interviewed. I was with them when they conducted one of the interviews, and I'd like to publicly thank them for the assistance they gave in that effort. I think we landed a good candidate.
And making her feel so welcome. That'll start the year off on the right note,
Yeah.
won't it? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you very much.
I've lost my...
We're going to move on to snapshots of success. We have a lot to celebrate.
And our first snapshot of success comes from our celebration of excellence, which took place last week. Mrs. Stewart, would you like to talk about that? We have a special guest tonight from that event.
We do. We celebrated last Thursday. We celebrated individual building teachers of the year. We supported our RCS support nominees for support person of the year, administrative nominees for administrator of the year, friend of education, and our rising stars. Rising stars are teachers who have taught up to 3 years, and they are seen as leaders and taking great initiative on their own, often without much prompting. And we recognize all of those teachers. And then Mary Jo Clark was named our friend of education. Support person of the year was, oh gosh, I can't see the names.
Julia Finley. It was Patty Young.
It was Patty Young. I just can't read it. Sorry. And then administrative nominee, or the administrator of the year was Luann Spicer. And our teacher of the year is with us this evening, Kim Vincent, who teaches at Westview. If you'd come to the podium, please.
here before.
Part of the process is for her also to become an applicant for the State Teacher of the Year. I think we have a great applicant for that process.
And along with that, you get is it a $500 amount of 500
She
to
was
use in your classroom?
She was the elementary teacher of the year and then the overall district teacher of the year. So she actually has $1,000.
Oh.
So have you thought about what you're going to use that for in the classroom?
Shopping already.
Well, it comes at a really good time because I will actually be entering back into the classroom next year because I've been out this past school year. I wasn't in the classroom. So I'm not really 100% sure what I'm going to use it on because I'm not quite sure what I'll get where I'm going.
Tell us what you did this year.
I can't tell who was talking to me.
Me.
Oh, Kelly, sorry. I was the instructional coach at Westview this year. So I spent a lot of time looking at data and helping teachers use that data to drive their instruction and helping with the new assessments that were coming in and stuff like that.
Well, you did a great job. So congratulations. Does anyone have any comments or questions? Linda?
So, Kim, you have been Teacher of the Year for almost a week.
I know, it's been great.
How has your life changed? Being Teacher
Not
of the
very
Year.
much. I've had a couple complimentary cups of coffee put on my desk. I've had a lot of a lot of congratulations, and it's been nice. I've had a lot of people write me little notes and phone calls, and it's been nice.
Great.
Explain the next part of the process, because it's a fairly complicated, broad process, isn't it?
The teachers submit a portfolio to state reviewers,
Right.
and at that point, then it goes to the state review committee that will determine. And we've had several finalists over the years. I'm not sure, have we had a state winner?
Not yet. It's
Process.
just, no, not yet.
This is the year.
But we have 2 finalists at our board table.
Yes, we do.
Is that right?
Both Linda and
I remember when Dixie
have,
was.
have been finalists and gone to that nice dinner. And
Well, but the portfolio is fairly complex. What did you have to do to, you have to fill out the portfolio? So be ready, Kim. Don't be humble.
I've gone to the website and I've printed it out, but I haven't.
actually, what we've done here locally is change our application process so that they kind of have a head start on the one that's done at the state level.
I understand that. I think it's changed a lot since I did
has.
it about 12 years ago, but I understand it's very data-driven now.
I have heard that also.
Anyone else?
Well, I happened to lean over and I said, okay, who's your favorite, Dixie? And she had to say, well, I read all the portfolio, so I can't. Yours was really good. And that's exactly what she said. So where are you going next year?
Next year, I'll be housed at the Hibbard Building because I'll be joining the Logos staff. I'll be teaching the 6th, 7th, and 8th grade in the Logos lab.
Well, good luck with that. That's
Yeah, I'm
wonderful.
very excited. I'm very excited.
You're lucky to
about
have
that. Thank you. It'll be a good challenge. So.
Okay, what is your advice for us as board members? I mean, that's it. I mean, you've been in the
a broad
trenches there, you've been working on data, you've been working on assessments, you've been working on the next steps for student achievement. What do we need to know?
Okay, quite honestly, I think we are headed in the right direction. I've appreciated everything we've been doing. My one piece of advice would maybe be to listen to the teachers because we know there's a difference between it's easier to say something than to do something. And we are trying to do everything we're asked to do, and it's difficult. And at the elementary level, we're very overwhelmed right now with everything that we're trying to do, because we're trying to do it, and we're trying to do a very good job, and we want to do what's best, and it's just very overwhelming right now. So that would be my one piece of advice.
Thank you for that.
I
very
appreciate
honest
hearing
answer.
that. And thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thank you. Very
Thank
nice.
you, Kim.
Congratulations.
Appreciated.
this portfolio finished, I can help you with the next one.
You can't help me?
She can.
She can.
Excellent. Then I will be giving you a call. I would appreciate that. Okay.
Make an appointment.
Okay.
You have to get in line to see Dixie.
Okay, I will make an appointment. Thank you.
Thank you. I think the next part is all yours.
I knew that.
It's Teacher Appreciation Week, and I believe we have a proclamation that Mrs. Morgeson is going to read.
It is truly with great honor that I get to read this proclamation because teachers are certainly at the heart of everything that we do for our students in Richmond Community Schools. Whereas America's teachers prepare students in our public schools to meet high standards of performance, be lifelong learners, and contribute as world citizens. And whereas the Richmond Community Schools develops and cultivates community partnerships, such as communities in schools, to support the work of teachers and the welfare of students. And whereas the Richmond Community Schools, through its commitment to continuous progress, contributes significantly to the development of this community's economic vitality. And whereas teachers motivate and encourage our children to succeed academically, artistically, socially, athletically, and whereas teachers mold the behavior of students through their own behavior to resolve conflicts successfully, take risks with new ideas, and model accountability as a standard of adult responsibility. And whereas America's teachers touch the lives of our children and weave the thread of democracy throughout our country, therefore, be it resolved that we, the Board of School Trustees of Richmond Community Schools, do hereby proclaim May the 6th through the 12th, 2012, as Teacher Appreciation Week. Further, be it resolved that the Richmond Education Association and the Richmond Community Schools recognizes and commends communities and schools for its work to support the work of teachers by addressing the needs of students.
Thank you. That was very well read. Do I hear a motion to accept this proclamation?
So moved.
Pat Heine makes the motion, and Suzanne Darengowski seconds the motion. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Thank you, teachers.
You also have a presentation to make.
It's behind you.
Vivian Ashmawy from Communities and Schools is with us tonight, and the board just recognized Communities and Schools as one of the sources of support for teachers throughout our system. But the Richmond Education Association and the Richmond Community School Board joins together in formally recognizing Communities and Schools as a great support for our teachers by presenting a $500 check. That would be $250 from our Richmond Education Association and $250 from the school board. We would like to donate that to the Communities and Schools.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Bridget would like to get a picture.
Alan, explain where the money came from. Wasn't that because we didn't do something?
Yes.
The money, and Vivian, maybe it would be nice for you to hear, I think you know the story. In years past, the REA and the school board purchased breakfast items, muffins, bagels, donuts in the past for all the teachers one day throughout the system. And last year, we discussed what we would like to do for Teacher Appreciation Week, and it was very quickly decided that what we ought to be doing, rather than purchasing something to eat, would be to purchase recognition for something that is a great support for our teachers throughout the system. Communities and schools came very quickly to people's way of thinking, and that's what we did last year. And this year, same conversation I had with Patsy Baker as we were discussing what to do, and it was very quickly decided we need to show our appreciation for communities and schools for the great support it gives every teacher in the system. So it was a very easy decision that the REA made, and we were very quick to underscore their appreciation and join them with that.
Well, I want to thank you all, the teachers especially, and the school board, and for all the work that we have been able to do collaboratively. I saw Kathy Parker when I walked in, and how many years ago we began working on that federal Safe Schools Healthy Students grant, so that we knew that that when we work together we're stronger, and that we support our teachers and support our students, and to be able to think about being able to sustain that level of service after that federal grant expires is very exciting, and it's the commitment of Richmond Community Schools to our partnership that's very outstanding, and I want to thank you all for that, and encourage those that want to continue to be a partner to do so. We feel like we have a really strong plan for sustaining our work, but it's going to take everybody to do that, and every little bit helps, so we really appreciate the efforts. Thank you.
Did anyone else have anything they wanted to say?
I'd like to just ask, do you have another meeting after this?
This evening?
Mm-hmm.
I don't think so.
No? I just want to let everyone know that she began and she's ending her day with the Richmond Community Schools. 7:30 this morning, she was at the high school in a friend-raiser activity promoting communities and schools, but also promoting Richmond High School and its communities and schools network of people, as well as the students. And here she's ending her day as well with us. So it's been nice to have you today.
I appreciate it, and I'm looking forward to the next 10 years. Thank you. Thank you all so much.
Thank you. We probably should wait until the celebration, but one of her communities and schools people at the high school, Chris LaPresti, was instrumental in that wonderful open house last week, and so that's not just for communities and schools generally, but very specifically what people do.
Our next snapshot of success involves National School Nurse Day, and we turn to Mrs. Bergdahl to make that observation.
Yes, we'd like to thank you for the opportunity to recognize our RCS nurses. This is National Nurses Week. It really began on May the 6th, and it ends on May the 12th, which was really the birth date of Florence Nightingale, a famous nurse. This year's theme for our nurses is advocating, leading, and caring. The National School Nurse Day is actually today, May the 9th. And I'd like to recognize our 6 school nurses that we have that every day cares for our children and our staff. Deb Strassner is an RN, and she is our RCS nurse supervisor, and she's assigned to the high school full-time. And then Sam Roth is our LPN, and he works with her at the high school on a daily basis. We have Diane Hughes, who's an RN also, and her buildings are Crestdale, Highland Heights, Elizabeth Starr Academy, and Test Middle School. Anna Holscher is an RN, and she's at Fairview, Westview, the Richmond State Hospital Program, Early Learning Center, and Dennis Middle School. And then Kim Puterball is an RN, and she's at Charles, C.R. Richardson, Garrison, and Vale. And then we have Janetta Nobby, who's our LPN, who's assigned at Highland Heights, and she works basically with our life skills students on a daily basis. Our school nurses provide nursing assistance and care throughout the school day. They do vision screening, scoliosis screening, monitoring immunizations, recording immunizations into the CHIRP file, attend Section 504 meetings, monitor our students with diabetes and other health needs. This year, the student visits to the clinics have risen from last year. Our count this year is 29,176 visits. And I would just like to add that, our nurses aren't at the buildings every day. So the other people that take care of our students when the nurses aren't there are our building secretaries. So I'd really like to pat them on the back also and recognize them because they have other duties and yet they still take time to do that. We continue to see a rise in our students, especially our elementaries, of identifying students with diabetes and also with asthma. So we have some students there that really take some special care from our nurses. We also want to recognize the fact that our technology department, this year our nurses were able to put data in on the immunizations on our health screen. And Frank and Rob helped a lot with the nurses doing a training for them to input that data. And then I'd also like to thank Dr. Boroff and all of you for your continued support for our nursing staff. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks to all our nurses. On to action items.
Well, this action item tonight is not, I'm not asking for action as I had intended. The RISE Evaluation and Development System has been the teacher evaluation plan that we're have taken under consideration and have worked to process to the point that we're almost ready to request formal approval. But we've had a few changes in direction, and one of those changes I'll say congratulations for too. Bill Doring, Dr. Doring, has been the person in charge of leading this effort this year. And as everyone is aware, Dr. Doring was appointed last evening as the new superintendent at Nettle Creek Schools. And so I congratulate him. But I also have to react to the fact that he's not going to be around to do some training for us. So we were looking at using some of our coaches, many of our academic coaches, to actually do some of the secondary evaluation. That's just not feasible. And it's not that I would eliminate the idea in the future of having coaches in that secondary evaluation tool or mode, but they have to be trained in order for them to be functioning in that capacity. That just can't happen for next year. So we would be, we have talked to the REA just today, as a matter of fact, in the formal discussion process, and let them know that we're changing our recommendation on that. But we also have, through the discussion process, identified a couple of areas that we would like to work on before we bring this plan to the board. One of those areas that we would like to work on is the weight given to the core professionalism component of the plan. We aren't sure how far we can move with any recommendation or tweaking without it actually being an approved plan by the state. We are interested in that it be an approved plan by the state so that we can qualify for the grant dollars that would come our way later on to augment our compensation model. But what we have agreed to with in discussion with the teachers is to take some of our concerns on at least two areas, that being one, and discuss it for the next 2 weeks, trying to have it ready for your next board meeting so that we have a plan to bring to your to recommend for your approval before the school year is out and teachers know what they'll be looking at before they leave for the summer break. We think we can do that. Patsy Baker, who is not with us right now but was with us just a little while ago, said that she's up to the task of having some conversation to, well, here she comes in, right on cue.
Just say yes, Patsy.
Patsy, you're being discussed right as you walked in the door.
That was a scary look.
It is good. It is good. I just said that you were working with us for the next 2 weeks to bring back some recommendations for this RISE model that we all could live with much better than if we had brought it back today.
And teachers are so happy about that. Thank you, Dr. Bora.
Thank you for being a part of it. So that's where we are tonight. No recommendation, just an update on where we are.
And the overview that we received that's on board docs is the same as we had a couple weeks ago.
It is.
It's just got some updated notes. Was there anything in there you wanted to talk about, or? Well, it says modified with notes.
No, that was for me. I ran, it's okay, it's the same one.
It is the same one. It was modified from what we had put together for another presentation.
So we will expect to vote on this at the next meeting.
Well, we'll bring it as a recommendation.
Okay.
Pat, do you want to start? Well, I heard from folks somewhat in connection with what Kim was saying about teachers feeling overwhelmed. Would you explain the timing and the process? You alluded to the fact that there's a compensation package coming along. This isn't just because we decided we wanted a new evaluation model on top of all of the master planning on all of those other things. Is that correct?
Yeah, that would be correct. It's a state mandate that we bring a new teacher evaluation plan into the next school year. And when we do that, it has to have certain components per legislation. And those components are all found in the RISE model. There are at least 3 different models that I know of that have been piloted this year at different schools. And the RISE model is the one that has been piloted probably in more schools than I've, not piloted, but it's been piloted at Greensburg, and we've observed at Greensburg their success with it, but it's also being implemented in a number of schools throughout the state. So when we bring that to reality in the fall, that's in conjunction with a compensation model, which is also a requirement of the state. And that compensation model depends in great part on the results of the new evaluation plan. So the reason we're moving forward under this kind of timeline is that, 1, it's a requirement, but 2, the state is making available a certain amount of dollars that the only way you can qualify for would be to have the approved evaluation and the approved compensation model. And we plan to have that because we want our teachers to qualify for those dollars so that when they generate positive evaluation marks, they also qualify for the dollars that can be achieved through that grant.
Yeah. In my question, I meant to, you and REA representatives, a school using this. What did Greensburg, what was the result of using it at Greensburg? You were...
They're seeing, for one thing, they're seeing principals in the buildings, in the classrooms, much, much more. It's changed the focus. It's actually changed the process of interaction for instructional purposes between teacher and principal. In some cases, it's made principals a lot less accessible to the public. So they've had to revamp how they interact with the public, but it has changed instruction in the building. And one of the focus of the whole plan was for teachers to understand that this is not an evaluation to generate criticism. It's an evaluation tool that's actually supposed to be used as support for deeper, better instruction, ultimately for higher student achievement. And it was not, in fact, the superintendent kept saying, we've stressed with teachers, this is not a gotcha, this is a method of support. And that's the challenge as you move forward with any evaluation plan, but this one specifically, that it be viewed as support. And one way that it provides support is to, on a regular basis, have principals enter the classroom in an observational mode and providing almost instant feedback to the teachers on what they're seeing, and that feedback is based on on a rubric, on a performance rubric designed to eliminate the opinion piece but instead focus on observational, behavioral type statements that the teachers can understand and put to immediate use. In other words, the old days of saying I was impressed by this would be a thing of the past. You no longer use comments like that. You would more likely say, I suppose you can use the term impressed, but you would talk about what it was specifically that you saw the teacher do with the student that was so impressive. It might be the method of calling upon a student who didn't have a hand raised, expecting participation instead of waiting for a student to volunteer. So that's just a minor example, but that's the type of feedback the teachers will be getting.
Linda first, and then Aaron had a question.
No, I just pointing out Linda. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Aaron.
Thank you, Aaron.
I'm glad that you're taking care of me.
You observed my hand earlier, so.
Takes a village to raise Linda. I have a couple questions, and then I also have a comment. So just so everybody will know. First of all, could you, when you come back with this, could you bring us sort of a calendar of events or a process that is being followed, will be followed for implementation of this so that we can kind of follow what's being done system-wide and in our schools to prepare teachers and administrators for this implementation?
We should be able to. In fact, not only will
already have that.
I can't say we have it because we'll be working on that. The training and the implementation hasn't been done just yet, but we should be able to bring you back at that time the actual schedule for observations in the classrooms for next year.
And then the second question I had on the core professionalism part of it, how, or is this what you're going to be talking about with the teachers, how we're going to ensure consistency across the district on these particular measures?
That is one of the things we're talking about. I think the fear was, and let me just kind of highlight what this is. The core professionalism piece is a piece that talks about teachers being at school on time,
Attendance, on time,
punctuality,
policies and procedures, and respect.
those four pieces. And I think one of the concerns that we had tonight was, will the teachers come to the end of the year and suddenly they find out that they're being docked a point in this because of something that happened throughout the year? Well, it shouldn't be at that. It shouldn't come to, they should not be surprised. There should be a pattern of behavior leading to this, but that pattern should be punctuated by efforts within the building to extinguish whatever that behavior is. If a teacher is not coming to school on time, there should be some kind of a demonstration that that's been addressed with the teacher and they're working together to make sure it doesn't happen.
So wouldn't that be included in the immediate impact kinds of thing? I mean, immediate feedback?
It could be. It could be a part of that. We just don't think it should be a surprise to anybody. There should be a plan of action so that it doesn't have to take place, for one thing.
Except isn't this particular part is, it's either you did it or you didn't, whereas everything else is based on a continuum. Isn't that correct?
Well, I think what you mean is that if it's true that there has been a pattern of not coming to school on time or not following policy, they are docked a point in the overall calculation. And that's a heavy point loss because there are only, I think, 4 points that they can score. So what we're talking about is what leads up to that, and we're also talking about the weight. Does it have to be a point? Could it be something less?
I like the idea that you're discussing the fact that maybe it should be weighty, but it can't be a surprise. As long as they know ahead.
Should not be a
it's coming.
surprise.
There's something happening. Yeah.
And you had a comment?
Yeah, my comment is that I truly believe that this is a powerful tool for our teachers, for our administrators, and for our students, because it is going to help teachers with their craft, and it's going to begin to open up all kinds of conversation, and everybody's just going to get better because of it. And so it's really an exciting tool, but we need to ensure that that's why I'm so thrilled that you're having conversation with the teachers, because we need their input. And Kim, we need to listen to teachers because they know. They know what they're doing, and they need to have a voice. They need to be empowered, and that in turn will bring about great rewards for our students. So I just wanted to.
Thank you, Linda. Aaron, you had a question now?
Well, actually, it's not a question. It's actually somewhat of a request. This is going to be an important tool for, once we do adopt it, that is going to hopefully create the atmosphere that maybe it created in Greensburg and other locations. And I know that there's a lot of excitement about it, and I know that the word evaluation in and of itself scares a lot of people, because it is sometimes the perception of it's a gotcha tool, as was used. But no, when Patsy came in, she made the comment that there's a lot of excitement. I would actually, I know that she went with you, would it be possible, hear from her just a moment to, if she could just, I don't want to necessarily put you on the spot, but just briefly talk, you or Kelly, and talk about why it was.
There's a deferment happening. You're in the front.
All right, you're on the just why it is so exciting to teachers, because this is going to be one of those tools. We want to have the greatest support for the teachers, and if this is one of the ways, then I'm excited to find out why they're so excited.
Well, not to look at it negatively, I'm not sure it's exciting to teachers, Aaron. I'm not sure that that's the word that I would use to express it, but I think it's important that teachers improve their craft. I think it's important that it be done fairly. I think that it's important that those objectives be stated behaviorally, so that we know exactly what's expected of us. And I think that it needs to be measurable. I think there need to be some timelines. I think there's some real important parts, and I'm so thrilled that the important part, the exciting part, is that Dr. Boroff agreed today to maybe tweak RISE. There are some really ambiguous, help me, Kelly. Language choices in that tool. Unlike the Danielson model that we're using, we typically are real definitive. And that's what I would hope to come out of this RISE tweak. So that's the exciting part, is that y'all are willing to work with us to make that happen. And that teachers are actually going to get to have some input, because actually we know what should happen with our craft. Yeah, evaluators certainly do, and principals have been in classrooms and they get it, but it's important that we collaborate and that we have some real input. And the important part is then teachers will have buy-in, and they'll know what's happening with their evaluation, and that'll be outside of the evaluation. They'll look ahead and say, this is what I should be doing. I should be engaging students. I should be motivating students. I should understand the content and really present it adequately. Go ahead, Kelly. I'm rambling.
Well, I just support what Kim said, the idea that teachers are the ones in the trenches, so they really understand how will this RISE model impact their teaching. And there are some valuable things in the RISE model. We, obviously we've been using Danielson for some time, and so we have a bias toward that model. But and I think that, as Patsy said, it's more definitive. There is some vague and ambiguous language in RISE. So that's part of the concern. I think one of the things that's been mentioned at the table is make sure teachers know what's going to be expected of them when they come back. Well, we, from REA's viewpoint, we feel like in the RISE model, we're not sure that we're clear on some of those things. And so I think that's what, with Dr. Borf's willingness to allow us to have some conversations about that, perhaps we can clear that up. But I think the other thing that's been hit upon is that professionalism domain. And we've expressed that at the discussion table a few times, that 25% of your overall evaluation is in this realm of professionalism. Well, when you say it's just simply attendance and tardies and things like that, and we have had conversation at the table, and we're in agreement with RCS that those things are addressed in contractual language, so we're not concerned as much about that. I think the area of concern for us is policies and procedures, not so ambiguous, but what is this respect to colleagues, respect to children, respect to community members? Who interprets? What does that look like? And it's not very well defined, and I think we all like to think that we all understand a common definition of what respect is, but I think we all know that we don't. You know, that, well, I know as a social studies teacher, I teach that there are cultural differences in what is respect, you know, so, and in our own community, we're going to have to address some of those kind of things, and we serve a diverse population. We are, as teachers, a diverse population. You heard her use y'all. So, so I think that the conversations that we will have, hopefully in the next couple of weeks, will help us with this. I agree with Patsy. I'm not sure excited is the word that teachers would probably use with RISE. I think anxious would probably be a better way to describe it. Not that we're negative, but we just have real concerns, as you would with anything that's new.
Suzanne, was your comment directed? Well, I have a question for you, but I have a question for you guys too, because I think everyone around the table agrees and wants to listen to teachers. We all get that they're the ones with their boots on the ground, and they know. I mean, when we go out to the lunchrooms, it's such a great opportunity to see the teachers doing what they do. My question for you is, how do we do that? Because the collective voice is sometimes, there isn't a collective voice always. And so we do the lunchroom visit. I mean, we try to do those things, and each of us have people that we know that are in the profession that we sort of, I mean, you get a little thermometer every now and then from people that you know. So I guess I want teachers to feel like we're listening to them. I want to hear from you, though. How do we do that?
Well, obviously there could be opportunities for dialogue, you know, I mean, literally where we sit down and break bread or whatever.
But like the whole staff, or?
I don't know. I mean, this is a conversation probably that we should be going through Dr. Borf, but one of the things that I heard you say was meeting with teachers in lunchrooms, perhaps visiting classrooms and literally sitting in for an entire class period.
There's several that do that too, but
right.
I guess that's okay.
Right, because lunchrooms, teachers' lunchrooms are you know.
I don't know. Westview put on a pretty good spread when I was there, and I would go back any day.
Well, apparently I'm in the wrong building.
And I might add to Kelly's comments, and I want to be politically correct, which I don't always do, but I think an element of trust among us, and that we can have candid conversations, and I'm not saying there have been reprisals, but I think teachers need to feel safe, and they need to feel that you folks understand that they're the experts, and that their voices are really heard. Now, how we make that happen?
I was going to say, how do you garner that? Because I totally believe that they are the, I mean, I don't know how else to say it. They're the ones who know what they do. They're the experts. I can say that. How do I make someone, how do I make someone believe that? Other than just be there. I mean, my email's there. Tell me what you're thinking. And there are people I know that do that, but
I think there, then in certain buildings, there are principals who certainly make their teachers feel validated. They're very responsive. They're not reactive. And those staffs particularly feel very safe in saying, this is really not right. How can we do it differently? And I think it's easy for us to do top-down kinds of things. It's easier. It's quicker. It's
well, sometimes you have to.
But
sometimes you have to. But if you take into account what's happening at grassroots, those are the folks who really know what happens. Suzanne, I wish I could tell you an avenue
expect
for
you to
that
have the
be.
magic answer. I
But
just was hoping maybe you had.
if somehow you all come together, y'all, and just make teachers feel safe and respected. Oh, we need some clarification on that respect.
Well, and I guess my final comment would be on this idea of the professional domain. I don't want to leave anybody with the impression that, and I know that the people sitting at this table don't have that feeling, and I trust that the community doesn't, but teachers are professionals, and teachers do, I don't know percentages, but probably the same as in any field or higher, come to work on time and are not absent without good cause, and try to conduct themselves with the utmost, professionalism and integrity and respect. That's not to say everyone is perfect, but I think that when we say that we're concerned about this professionalism domain, it almost appears as though we're saying, we want to protect our lack of professionalism, and that's clearly, I want to be clear at this point to this group and also to the community that that is not the concern on the part of teachers, and that is certainly we do feel that as professionals, that's our obligation to do those things. But at the same time, we're just concerned about the language on this evaluation piece that addresses this idea of what is professionalism. So, and as you heard me say, it's not the majority of it. It's primarily that one area that it's a primary concern.
And I also think we, as a board, administratively, system-wide, as we look at the RISE model, we need to look at how we can support our teachers. For example, the one part about protecting your instructional time, and on the teacher evaluation, it's more about behavior. But I think we need to look at how can we ensure that you get that instructional time. There's things that we do as a system that sometimes takes away from that time.
And these conversations will be what will, open people's understanding of what's really going on in the actual classroom to maybe understand how some decisions that are made for various reasons impact that. So.
And Dixie, I might address that in that every time we turn around, we're evaluating, we're assessing, we're testing. And I know Richmond is making an effort to make that a minimal kind of occasion, but I hear teachers and see teachers, it's Dibble's in-class time again. And so if we could somehow determine an amount of time that's important for assessing, but protect that instructional time. There's way too much assessment going on. And I don't know how we meet the state's needs and reach a balance with that.
That's a really good example, though, because the one visit that I was on, that was the conversation. It was, gosh, the time, but when I said, okay, what do you not need? Well, we need it all. So that's where the next conversation has to go. Then, okay, how are we more efficient with it? So that's a pretty darn good example.
Aaron?
Your candor right now may have been probably one of the most important exchanges I've heard all day. And I say that not to sugarcoat anything, but, Dr. Borf has let us know that he is going to be, that there's going to be work done on this so that it fits the needs not only of the teachers, but also something that we can be totally supportive of. Not just because we have to do it, because we know that it's going to be a tool that's going to help all of our teachers. And I thank you for your candor in your responses to it. Anxious, good word, okay? And I think as one board member, I'm very anxious to see whatever tweaking needs to be done so not only it's something that we're going to be completely clear on, that there will be no ambiguities or anything else or any uncertainties in there, but I'm really I'll go back to my word excited. I'm excited about just this conversation right now so we know where you are, because I think you'll find that as we continue to have our conversations here or in the classrooms with you, the thing that we want to shout out the loudest is we're going to do whatever we can to be supportive of you and the teachers, because you're the giver of the product that we try to put out there in the community, and we want to be supportive of it in any way. So I want to continue to have the conversations with you on this. So
Pat,
Every
thank
other
you.
Wednesday night advertised board meeting.
There you go.
Had a comment.
Well, at the risk of throwing another thing, one of the sessions I attended at the National School Board Association talked especially about middle and high school students being involved in the whole process of not necessarily evaluating teachers, but having comments about what goes on in the classroom. And as we look at this model, I know that the state, because I ask a few people at our state, they haven't really thought about the students' role in evaluation, but that's pretty darn important as we think about especially middle school and high school, and that may be something we want to add to our own community work. How can students be engaged in the conversation about improving instruction? And it also helps then put more responsibility on the students. I mean, this isn't just about, well, I'm going to get you, teacher, because I don't like you, but how am I part of the big learning community?
But I can tell you, Pat, those conversations go on, and I can't tell you daily that our children are a big part of their goals, and they take a look at their progress, and they have folders and binders, and they have those conversations frequently. So I think Richmond's kind of ahead of the game. I don't know what's happening at the middle school and high school level, but I can tell you that elementary students know where they are, and they know where they're going.
And we need to
if
make
you
sure
talk
we
with them, they
broadcast
really
that.
can
Exactly.
articulate that.
Yeah.
I think we're ahead of the game there.
Well, we need to then show the rest of the state how to do it, right? Because
We
students
very
are-
well could.
Yeah.
I think we could.
Suzanne, did you have one more comment?
Not.
Okay.
Thank you.
Patsy and Kelly,
Patsy,
thank
could
you.
I don't know if any of you caught this, but on the
Hiring.
we don't always have the opportunity for honoring one of ours right there at the podium, but Patsy is there for the public. We just approved her retirement notice.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
And thank you for all the years that you've given to
It's going to be a
RCS.
wonderful time. You know, it's been a wonderful time. Thank you. I'm just blessed to have had fun in my occupation. It's been a thrill to teach kids, and I'm looking forward to my retirement, and I'm already developing some fun things to do. I own property here. I think maybe I'll run for school board.
There you go.
Suzanne?
Yeah, this, and it was alluded to by our friends up there at the podium, but we have been working on the evaluation system that we've been currently working with an intent toward supporting and compensating excellent instruction. So while RISE is different, how much different are we talking about here?
Well, it does look different, and it forces more observation time.
Okay.
Maybe more conversation, but it's also a requirement for every single teacher, as opposed to just a third of the staff each year.
That's right.
So that's probably the biggest difference.
So so we're pushing more support into the classroom for teachers with this model through the principals primarily.
Correct.
And then we're going to need to push then some more support to the principals so that they can be freed up to be in the classroom too, right?
Somehow we have to make it work, and that's, I may be coming to you with another recommendation, but right now, I can't. Developing the schedule that was asked for earlier will give us some insight as to what kind of other requests may have to come your way.
Thank you.
We have to recognize that.
Well,
it
that's what
will.
I'm saying. I mean, if you're pulling, which I am thrilled about, as you said, the conversation, having that educational support person to me is critical, and I am so excited about that. But there is this whole job change for that leader, too, that we need to figure out.
Well, I think, sure. I think the state is really helping us to reorganize our schools.
Right.
And truly have our administrator as the educational leader. And
Which is phenomenal. I'm very excited about that. But the state and everyone else also has all these other rules of things that we have to do.
I understand that.
That was their job before. So I'm glad we're sensitive to something is going to have to give. That we'll have to reorganize that part too, I guess. So.
Nice discussion. And we'll move on to master planning now.
First item in the master plan is a review of our financials. And I'll go to the podium for that. I'd like to begin by saying that Mr. Coddington would be here to present this, but he's at a conference right now. In fact, one of the conference sessions was on the RISE model as it may pertain to corporation finances. So he can't be here with us tonight. But if he were here, I'm sure he would say something about every day is a good day in Richmond. Good evening.
We concur.
So, what I'd like to do is begin by saying we had projected our cash balances in the Capital Projects Fund to be almost $1.5 million at the end of 2012. The Rainy Day Fund, almost $4.5 million. And this would be because we don't anticipate using the $400,000 that had been set aside for the portable classrooms. So we were looking at those balances as a real possibility for 2012. At the Hibbard Intermediate Building, we have the building completely under renovation right now. In fact, if you were to walk in there, you would find a huge amount of progress already made. We have some classrooms being painted now. We have some ceilings being filled. A lot of the demolition work has been done, and it's being put back together now. It's looking good. What we had projected, though, earlier was about an $870,000, actually about an $800,000 project. It's coming in at $870,000. But what we also know is that to do the parking lots the way we would like, in order to get buses off the street and students on into the building in the safest manner possible, it's going to take approximately $300,000 additional money. So what we are suggesting is that you look at a transfer of that $325,000 from the Rainy Day Fund, actually not a transfer, but an expenditure from the Rainy Day Fund for that. We'll move on to the Dennis Intermediate School, and in that situation, we had talked about a gymnasium being built onto, or in addition to, the multipurpose room as it now stands. When we were looking at that design, though, we were looking at a basic gym, nothing more, steel structure, and over the course of time since we've introduced that idea, many suggestions have come our way to enhance that design. And one of the suggestions has been, if you're going to put a floor in it, make it a regulation-sized floor. Okay?
Thanks.
Well, and if you're going to put a regulation-sized floor in it,
Got to have bleachers.
put some seating in there. The gym that we have at Dennis has seating in it right now, but it's seating at both ends of the gym. You either see the teams coming or you see the teams going, but it's hard to see the whole play in action. What we are looking at now is a gym about $1.2 million, along with the construction renovation of the cafeteria. But this would be a regulation-sized floor. That we only have 2 of those in the system, one at Hibbard and one at Tiernan. This would be a third one. It would also be a gymnasium that would be fully bricked on the outside to match the architectural flavor of Dennis Middle School as it stands now, which it does have historical significance. It also would provide access from the current current multipurpose room into that facility with plenty of access for crowds going and coming. Ample restroom facilities have been examined. They will exist in the building. I think a question came up. Mr. Slifer sent it my way. Please review the restroom requirements. We have done that. Mr. Mays will tell you about that as he comes up in just a little while. But we have reviewed that. They do meet standards. But it would require a $650,000 expenditure from the Rainy Day Fund that we hadn't intended for that purpose. At Crestdale, back in December, Mr. Mays gave us a recommendation for expenditures. It was an estimate, I should say, of expenditures at Crestdale. He was off by $1,000 from the bids as they came in, the base bids. I think it was $4,478,000, something like this. He was off by $1,000 on a $4 million, almost $4.5 million estimate. We had asked him, once we saw the estimates last year, to try to bring that in lower, but that was not possible. If it had come in lower, we'd have probably omitted additional classrooms, or HVAC, or windows, or technology, or gymnasium work, maybe a combination of some of those. But when we looked at the estimate back in November and December, we said, try to bring it in at this, but we really don't have any idea for you what to take out. We want all this. Well, the bids came in at what he said they would, and they were higher than what we wanted to spend. Nevertheless, we do have the money set aside for that. But it would be $1.5 million from the rainy day fund that we had not necessarily appropriated for Crestdale. The cash balances at the end of the year would be, and this is the end of 2012, about $1.5 million in the capital projects fund. The rainy day fund would have an ending balance of right at $3 million. How is this possible? We would have the Dennis additional, the Crestdale additional, and the Hibbert parking lot come out of that fund, and I believe that that's something like $2 million, almost $2.5 million. But we would also have a transfer from our transportation surplus of $1.25 million into the rainy day fund, leaving an imbalance of $3 million in our rainy day fund. That leaves approximately an 8%. 8% is our cash balance that we have always talked about for cash flow purposes that we thought would be prudent in the general fund. We no longer keep a cash balance in the general fund. It's the rainy day fund. It also leaves well over $1 million in the transportation surplus fund. So we have ample dollars in all those funds. Keep in mind, when I say that we have to appropriate some of this to these purposes, that we had also talked about almost an $8.1 million expenditure requirement for this master plan. We're well under that at this point. I shouldn't say well under it. We're about $8 million at this point, and with some additional expenditures, we might be just a bit over that. But we are right there where we said we would be. But in order to access these funds, we need to go through the additional appropriation request process. We aren't asking for approval right now for an additional appropriation, but after the discussion of this situation, I would like to be able to give Bob Coddington tomorrow, or when he comes back, that should be Monday, the authorization to begin the process, which would be advertising and so on, the additional appropriation from the rainy day fund. I believe that's, yeah. Do I have any questions on this?
Jeff?
I've kind of approached this from a little different angle, because when we approved the master plan, we had the exact number that we had potential to expend was $7,296,000. And I've noticed that, as I think I said a couple board meetings ago, that we've got $1.487 million that has not been appropriated yet, based on what our original budget was. So, as I go through and I add the numbers, if our total project is expected to come in at 8.1, if we go back and look at all of our construction costs that we had allocated to that, I'm making the assumption that we're going to we got $960,000 that we were originally allocating for potential expense at Charles. So we're absorbing that.
Correct.
Our cafeteria, you're going to increase that. Our test classrooms, for future classrooms, we had a potential of $736,000. And so how much of that do you think that we will still have to spend?
Are we planning to spend anything on additional classrooms at Test at this time?
So we have just the renovation at Test that's going to be 50,000, 100,000, 200?
We were looking at 50 or less because we're using Warner maintenance and high school construction.
That's right.
Pretty much doing it in-house.
Well, we still have a cost using our own maintenance department, but so we can allocate with that you're going to say $100,000 is a fair number, right?
I don't know if 100,000 is 100,000 more.
I mean, that gives us $50,000 fudge, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And then we're going to have the Baxter special purpose. We were originally allocated $100,000 to it. So, and I'm assuming that that's still a fairly accurate.
That's still the number we're using.
Yes.
So I guess in our summary is once we approve the balance of this, does this increase these numbers that you have up here, the $200,000, or is it reflected in that?
It's reflected in that.
Okay.
So
our actual appropriation is going to be, like, I'm going backwards from the numbers that we approved. If we had $7.296 million that we were willing to appropriate when we approved the master plan, and we're going to transfer $1 million from the transportation, we can actually reduce that to $6,296,000, so 6.3. Out of that 6.3, then we were going to pull originally out of the capital projects plan and the rainy day plan. The only big difference that I see that is the amount of money that we're pulling out of the rainy day fund and versus to what we were originally going to pull out of the capital projects plan.
I think that would be accurate.
Okay. So I guess part of the question I have is there some, are we eliminating some of the cost in the future that we could take back out of capital projects and transfer back into the rainy day fund?
I don't know that I can give you an answer for that. As we're going through the capital projects plan for 2013, which has not been drafted for your perusal yet, I'll be able to speak to that question, but I can't tonight.
Well, I think it's important that and we had a conversation on Monday. I think it's important that the public understands what our original appropriation was, and not just 7.3 to make it easy. So we may be a few $100,000 over it, but there's some justification in that. For one, that Hibbard parking lot is a must.
Right.
We've got to get the buses off the street. I mean, that's a safety concern for the kids.
And
so
delaying it just doesn't help any.
But I just want to make sure that we also follow through on our due diligence with what we told the public we were going to spend. So that's why I was trying to put it in perspective. Even though you're going back and asking for a second appropriation, we still had $1.5 million back that we could go and ask for that we had already approved.
That's
we just
correct.
didn't ask for the appropriation.
That's correct.
So, and by us moving the parking lot up out of 2013 into 2012, I see that as an avenue of possibly transferring money back into the capital project, because we've got other expenses that are going to come. And I just want to make sure that associated with this master planning, I mean, we have a lot of other costs that we're not tracking, our internal costs with our personnel, the trailers, the storage.
That's true.
Just stuff like that. As long as we're aware of that, and we seek that opportunity to put the money back into the capital projects, because there's going to be plenty of demands on money
Right.
later.
There will be. in
So-
2013.
I thought that was kind of the thinking, was that rather than wait until next year and take it out of capital projects, that we would go ahead and do it this year, but then that money would be taken out of capital projects next year and put back in our rainy day fund.
It may be that, or we may be able to defer, or not defer, but take on projects that we had been deferring into 2013. Like I said, I've not seen the draft of our 2013 plan. We may have been looking at trying to put something on hold to do that parking lot for a later year that we can now move back up to when it should be done.
Well, the only thing that is, I think it's clear that, we are going to be held accountable to, from the public. We're closing school buildings, and we're doing, there's a lot of things that we're doing for efficiency reasons. And I just want to make sure that we are able to track and know what we're responsible for when we answer to the public, so.
Well, and I think your questions were great questions, and, I think that will go a long way towards informing the public so they'll understand what's going on.
Well, and at the same time, too, I think, even though we've had to cut back and save money, you also have to think about educating the children for the future.
Absolutely.
And so I was really glad to hear about, first off, the parking lot at Hibbard for safety reasons, because I've stood down there for years and with my heart in my throat, hoping a kid would not walk out in between buses into the street. So I think that's critical. And also the gymnasium at Dennis, because of the situation with the lunchroom. But not only that we have built something, or we will be building something user-friendly, not only for our kids, but also for our community.
That's true. It'll be a very nice addition to
Where
this.
if we had just built a gymnasium, it wouldn't be useful for a lot of things.
Correct.
Right.
So.
And we certainly use them. All of our gyms
Yes,
are
we do.
used all the time. Aaron?
And we're probably looking with that gym being a regulation-sized gym, I'm just going to throw this one out there, also the possibility of some revenue return in the future. I know that Coach Luce has basketball tournaments and everything else throughout the year, but this will be more attractive too, having that, because you can run them in more in different locations with a regulation-sized gym. And otherwise, we were limited to with only 2 locations. And so there are potentially some revenue return with completion of that as well.
Thank you.
I would like to recommend that you would authorize Bob Coddington to begin this process of additional appropriation.
So moved. Pat Heine makes a motion, and Suzanne Darengowski seconds the motion. We've had our conversation. Is there anything else before we approve this? All those in favor, please signify by Jeff.
My only question was, I just want to make sure that the appropriation includes the, just valid, that it includes the other $200,000 that we need to, you said you thought it included it in the appropriation. I just want to make sure that it covers the rest of our expenses on this master plan.
We'll get a note to you on that, but he'll take that into consideration.
All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Now we have Crestdale bids.
On the Crestdale bids. Crestdale Elementary Building Project bids were received on Tuesday, April 24th. The notice to bidders was published in the Palladium item on April 2nd and on April 9th. Proof of publication is on file in the business office, and the receipt of the bid sheets were enclosed, and all for your information, and all bids and bid documents are also on file. The recommendation is that the Crestdale Elementary Building Project bids are awarded to Thor Construction of Richmond at the low bid with a base bid of $4,759,647 and plus alternate bid number 2 in the amount of $81,000 and alternate bid number 8 in the amount of $268,000 $508,000 for a grand total of $5,108,647, meeting bid specifications as presented.
Do I have a motion to accept the Crestdale bids as presented?
So move.
Jeff Slifer makes the motion, Dixie Robinson seconds the motion. Are there any comments and questions? Jeff?
A couple things. Alternate add 2, just for clarification, was the addition for the cost for the parking lot. And then the alternate add 8 was for the control wiring for the energy management system. But I think it's also, there was a lot of discussion in the system about whether we were going to build 3 classrooms, 4 classrooms, or 5 classrooms. Our original print had 5, and then it went down to as little as 3. And I just want to validate this with Ron. It's my understanding that since we did not take the deduct number 1 for, was it 45,000 roughly, we're ending up with 4 classrooms.
4 classrooms.
Okay. Which I find interesting, because one of the very first questions I asked in the beginning, what does it cost per classroom? And if you're basing that on $160 to $200 a square foot, you're looking at $200,000. So I'm glad that we kept the 4th classroom for 45, because I would build 10 more at that cost.
Man, okay.
So just, and am I right in my assumptions, in my statements? Okay, that's the only thing.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions or comments?
Actually,
Yes.
you're making the award subject to the contract coming back to subject to the contract being prepared and duly executed. We're back
Oh,
in
yeah,
that.
we need
Yeah,
to,
that, Pam.
We need to make sure we.
She's fully aware of it.
Okay.
And this is a local bidder, by the way.
Yes, it is. Do you want to say that again? Because
I just want to point out that it is a local contractor.
Yes. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Thank you.
The next session that we have, the work session actually, and I don't know how much of a work session it is, but we have information that we would like to present. Maybe you have questions on the facilities and summer projects associated with our building projects in our master planning. So, Mr. Mays, if you would walk the board through our facilities and summer projects, please.
Okay. Pleasure being here tonight, and what I hope to do is again, we can answer some questions on, I'll be showing you Dennis, and we'll be looking at Crestdale floor plans again, so you can see what we're actually doing there. But what I want to do is go through each project and kind of give you an update and where we are and what's happening. We're looking at Hibbard as our first building, and what we're what we're looking at, the life skills area, which we've all seen. Probably 80% of the walls are now up in the life skill area. We've painted the gym ceiling already. We've painted this area in here, and we're starting the walls and painting walls on the first floor at this point. On the second floor, we're a little bit further along, and the second floor, all the classrooms have had their 2 coats of paint on them, and that we're now putting in ceiling pads in this area right here. We're hoping to start the light fixtures next week, and we're starting right here and putting carpet and the casework starting tomorrow and next week in this area right here, and so that probably in the next couple of weeks the second floor should be done, and then by June the 8th the total building should be completed except for the corridors, and we're leaving the corridors last because we are going to be doing some moving of equipment in and so forth, and we didn't want to damage the floors, and they'll all be fresh. The interesting thing about the project is that Richmond Community Schools in-house, they're installing all the metal studs, drywall, door frames, all the ceilings, and actually the construction manager. Then the other part of that is that from the construction class at the high school, I know we've talked about this before, about how they love doing demolition. Now they're on the other side. We have 4 boys that are working with the metal studs and drywall, and what they've done, they've put a a qualified maintenance person with each boy to teach them how to do that. Then we have another 3 boys that are helping cut, tile, and put in lay-in ceilings, and we have another 2 to 3 helpers that just kind of do everything. And it's interesting that they're so into demolition that under contract, the floor contractor was responsible for taking out carpet, and John Hamilton told me he found some of the high school boys doing that work themselves because they just like doing it. So that is a great project at Dennis. At Test, and this will help answer one of the questions we had about classrooms. At Test, we have the 6th grade. We have 4 6th grades on the first floor here, and we were able to pick up in the life skills area, and this is what we're going to be working on this summer also, that this room right now has a kitchen in it and restrooms and showers. That's going to be turned back into a classroom. This area right here has just a couple walls in there for an office. That's going to be turned back into a classroom. And then this classroom. So we've actually picked up 3 classrooms, plus the fact that we were able to pick up another 5th grade and 6th grade classroom that we don't require. So we were looking at 6 additional classrooms at one time, and we have everybody covered now at Test at this time, so that we do not need any additional classrooms. On the upper floor, we have the 5th grade along here, and then we have the 6th grade, 2 additional 6th grade classrooms here, and we were able to keep the computer lab there. At one time, we were looking at the expense of having to move this into the library, having 2 more 5th grades up here, and taking 2 classrooms downstairs for 6th grade. So that's worked its way out. We've worked with the staff at Test, and they have all the rooms that they need. Again, the Warner crew is going to come over, and they're going to do all the demolition. They're going to patch the walls, paint the walls, put new floor covering down, and we're going to do all that in-house without any outside help. We're able to then hire and pay 5 students from the construction class at the high school that we're going to be able to employ over the summer. And we're going to use them at Test, and we're going to use them also at Baxter, and some work at Dennis. And so it's a learning situation. It's really a win-win for everybody. At Dennis, this will give you an idea on, and it's kind of hard to see on the cafeteria here. We've put in extra doors, and we'll keep these doors open so we have a good flow right through the cafeteria and in this main corridor. And then the kitchen will be in this storage room area here. We were able then to put the gym on and use this existing hallway that will then drop off into the gym. And this is a high school regulation floor, so you can see it's taking up the whole gym, so we still don't have a lot of wasted space. We're able to pick up 4 sections of temporary bleachers that are now at Tiernan Center that's not used anymore, and so we're going to bring those over, and so we've probably picked up the cost of $50,000 to $60,000 for bleachers, and we're sitting at the high school. And if you remember at Tiernan Center, where they have 2 message boards now, where they have scoreboards, we're going to get those scoreboards, which are now stored in the bus garage, and we're going to bring those over. And those are roughly a $9,000 to $10,000 scoreboard, each one of them. So we have 2 of them, so that we are looking at picking up various pieces of equipment in here. And then we're going to put in a mechanical room for an air handling unit for the cafeteria, and then it'll also handle the gym, and then a maintenance or a storage area for gym equipment. And then the question came up on the restrooms. We have restrooms in this area right here, and those restrooms will take care of if we had, let's say, an event going on here that required seating, and then we had an event going on here where we have seating at each end. the size of those restrooms are capable to handle that. If we had an event where we put chairs on the gym floor and that we had that area full, then there's a set of restrooms right here that we would use. There's boys and girls right here, and which would be more than enough with the complement of that. The one thing about Dennis is with the auditorium, it would probably be rarely used where we would have to put chairs and things on the gym floor. The other good thing, and when we were talking about maybe the Bob Wittig tournament and other activities, all we have to do is lock these doors right here, and this is the only area that we'll be able to get to, and the rest of the building will be totally locked up.
Yeah, that's
so
really
it would
good.
be a secure building. So, and again, we're looking at some summer jobs because we are going through, and we have to add a wall right here for the 5th grade and another wall in here, and then we're going to make this a music room, and the band, we've talked to the band, they're gonna work off of the auditorium stage, which the orchestra does now. So it's something that we can use, and then we'll take the other music room and make it a 6th grade. By doing this, all of the 6th grade and 5th grade will be on the 1st floor, and all of the upper grade, the 7th and 8th, will be on the upper floors. If we didn't do that, we were going to have to utilize the labs, some science labs that we have down here, but they're on the 2nd floor. So we felt that we were better in keeping the 5th and 6th grade on the 1st floor than putting it on the 2nd floor. A better use of the facilities.
That made the science teachers happy, as I recall.
Absolutely, because what we're able to do with that is that right here, which was early college, we picked up a science lab at no extra cost.
That's great.
Right.
So now we have science here, science lab here, and a tremendous science lab in this, and a great teacher in that room. If you walk into that room, you'll feel it. And in that science room, and then keeping all the art up there, we're able to keep the dog pound. I think everybody knows what the dog pound is. We're able to keep that right there that's sacred land. So we keep that on that upper floor. Looking at Baxter, we got approval this week on Baxter from the state to make it a secured facility. And what I mean by a secured facility is that we can lock all of the exterior doors so that it would slow down any runners that we might have. And when I say secure, that once they touch the door, after 15 seconds, the door will unlock. But the initial touch, it will be locked, and an alarm will go off, and we would be able to take care of that situation. In the case of a fire drill or smoke detectors, the doors will unlock immediately, so that it's impossible to have anybody trapped in the building. So over the summertime, we're going to put those areas in. We're going to put some cameras in. We want to open up some of these walls that we have, and we want to build some timeout rooms. And so that's, and again, our Warner maintenance crews, along with the high school boys, would take care of that facility. This will be the first facility in Indiana that is a school building that we're able to have a secured facility. And in talking with the State Fire Marshal's office, they recognize the fact that schools are having to do this today. So we felt really good. We didn't know we were going to get it approved, but we did. Now going to Crestdale, just to give you an idea, when we talked about the $44,000 cost of savings, what it is that we already have 2 walls built there. So when we deducted this classroom, we were only deducting 2 walls and a roof. That's why it's so
It's low price
inexpensive.
gig.
I was trying to get 4 more rooms.
So we can't go back next year and
Well,
add
there's other walls.
$44,000 rooms. And so, so we do have the 3 or 4 classrooms there, and this is where the 5th one was, right there. And that the other thing, this map doesn't show it, but right here, we show this as a kindergarten room, and with our enrollments and registrations and so forth, that's an open classroom. So we actually have 4 new classrooms and still have an open classroom at Crestdale. We're looking at life skills, first grade, second and third, and then fourth, a new renovated cafeteria, and this school will not be any different than any school that we've renovated. So when you walk in here, you're going to say, well, okay, we can see that we don't have any big frills, and that this is for the students, at the cost of students in mind, such as Fairview, Star, all of them that we've done. To give you an example here of construction cost, the construction cost of this project for the new addition was $160 a square foot, and that is, and we have 6,515 square foot, so that's the $1,042,400 of our bill. The state average right now is $180 a square foot for a $6,000 addition. Now, if you go up, or 6,000 square foot addition, if you go up to a 10,000, 11,000, or 12,000, that square footage cost will come down. But so we got it in for 160, and the average is 180. For the renovation, we have 49,553 square feet renovated, with that total of $3,985,747. The state average, we averaged $80.42 a square foot. The state average is between 70 and 100, and that really depends upon what you do in the renovation. But I just wanted to make you all aware that the cost per square foot is still within the below state average. The other thing that really makes me feel good is the fact, and it's easy to say we have local contractors. It's easy to say that, but when you listen, that the taxpayer dollars going back to the community, every contractor is from Wayne County. We have one contractor that's from an adjoining county.
That's awesome.
Listen to this. We have Thor, Crane, DeLucio, Wiesenhunt, MRW, Gary Johnson, Catron's Glass, Runnels Builders Products, Kevin Allen, Cabinet Tops, Dave Carnes, Carroll Electric, and Thomas Masonry. I mean, that's an impact on the community. That I'm glad that we were able to do
Did
that.
Brian get that?
And it's in, and it was within the requirements of the bidding, so that we ended up that way.
That's quite
Looking at
interesting article. Yeah.
at Crestdale, again, here's an important feature. I appreciate you approving the contracts for tonight, because as soon as I get done, I have to go upstairs and make a phone call, and there's an email going out, and tomorrow morning at 7 o'clock, there's going to be at least 15 people on the job site working. That's how close we are on the schedule. In looking at the schedule, Phase 1, which has been vacated, and that's why they can start in there tomorrow. Phase 1 is this existing area right here. Okay, we were going to make a Phase 2, which included the new addition, but we've already had a construction meeting Tuesday, and the contractors, we feel great about this, the contractors would like to start this new addition with a second crew, and the first crew, they want to then do all of this renovated area and start it then the day that school, June the 4th, is what they want to start on that. As John Hamilton is moving things out the back door, we're going to be moving in the front door, and they guarantee that the total renovated area, which includes all of this space, the offices, the outside, the cafeteria, will be done and ready for school on August the 13th. And that because of the way the specs were, they're committed to do that, whether they have to work overtime or what, at no extra cost to the school corporation. They have to meet that date.
That's terrific. That's great.
Then the next phase, right here, on this edition, they'll start it also at the same time. This week, DeLucio is going to go in and start moving some dirt. They will also start that, but they're putting in a second crew, and they said that will be done at Thanksgiving break, so that we can move in there maybe over Thanksgiving. And what that means is, because when we these students right here that we've taken out, they're now in the gym. When we renovate this area, because of the school population, we will still need 3 to 4 classrooms in the gym, is what we have now. So and this is what we've done in all the elementary schools that we've done in the past. So then the gym, once we move those students out over Thanksgiving, then from Thanksgiving to Christmas, that will be renovated. So when they come back from Christmas break, the whole school will be 100% completed.
Wow.
And that's pretty aggressive schedule. We're meeting every Friday, and they're talking about the schedule on Friday, and what they didn't meet the week before, they're going to pick it up and meet it the next week. And the reason why we said Friday is so they asked permission if they could work on Saturdays and Sundays, and we said yes, have to it. But we have to do it within the letter of the law as far as neighbors and saws and noise, and we know that. So we know that before 7 o'clock in the morning you can't have any saws going after a certain hour at night, and so they will schedule that so that they won't have any noise problems, and we will be good neighbors. The other thing that I wanted to just hit real quick is the moving schedule. To give you an idea of how complex this is, that John Hamilton back there is going to have white hair like the rest of us when he gets done, because the importance on Hibbert is that it has to be done June the 8th, because on June the 11th he has to move Test, Logos, and Dennis Early College into Hibbert. So then that opens up room then to start moving Charles and all the other schools into Test and Dennis, to make room for those schools so they can move the other classrooms into the K through 4. So it's a domino effect that if we don't hit these schedules, and they're saying from June the 4th through June the 29th, they will be moving Crestdale, Star, Fairview, Westview, Highland, Garrison, Charles, and Vale to either Test and Dennis or start working back into the elementary schools. Then CR, because of summer school, and summer school will be over with by July the 9th, so we will be moving CR then to Test and Dennis and Vale the week of July the 9th. And then we have to get ready at the state hospital so that birth to 5, they will move, we won't move them. They will then move to the state hospital so that they get out of Baxter, so we can renovate Baxter. And then we'll move our students that we have at the state hospital to Baxter on July the 27th, with everything ready to go the first day of school.
That's wonderful.
Ambitious.
I'm so impressed.
That's where we are.
Thank you.
It's a puzzle to be
No,
reckoned
we
with right
keep
there.
asking, what can we do? I pack a mean box of
That's what I'm
books.
saying.
Do you have any trucks or
I do.
or
I have a little
RVs
pickup
that we
truck.
can move things around?
No, but I mean, in all seriousness, are there
Moving
there
parties.
jobs that volunteers folks can do?
We
To
will be advertising for volunteers who would like to join us. we will be advertising that opportunity.
Okay.
And we'll have to have an orientation meeting
Sure.
to talk about that.
And you said you've had some community members ask.
I've had some, at least 3 conversations that I know where they're seriously wishing to help us in some way.
That's wonderful.
I think one thing that they're planning on right now, as far as CR, Garrison, and High on Heights are concerned, is only moving the furniture that they need now, and the other would stay in place until they get everything moved in, and then they would start working
Deal
on
with it
that.
then,
Because
yeah.
I know for a fact, on the 5th and 6th grade levels at Dennis, in a middle school, there's no storage. And there never has been, because they don't need it. But 5th and 6th grade teachers, if you look at what their needs are, they need storage. So those portables that we have at Garrison, that are about this high, we're going to take those and put those in the classrooms at Dennis, and so that they can use those on a temporary basis for storage. We did a model classroom at Dennis for tonight for 6th graders and last Thursday for 5th graders. And we put a smart board in there, and Rob had the smart board going. We had 5 computers on the back side of the wall that all said, "We are Richmond," on the computers. And then we had 5th and 6th grade furniture in there. And then Mrs. Keys, she used to be a 6th grade teacher, so she bought 6th grade paraphernalia to put on the walls. The thing that really
That's the data wall.
the thing that really surprised us was it impressed the 5th and 6th grade teachers as much as anybody, because they're coming from Fairview renovated, they're coming from Westview renovated, and they're coming from other schools, and they weren't sure what they were going to see at Dennis.
Good.
And they were very well pleased on what they saw as a model classroom, and that's what we're going to do this summer on the other 5th and 6th grades. And then Rob,
Missed the detail.
you want to tell them what you're doing with kids over the summer?
Right, we're going to employ at least 4 of the computer technology students from the high school to help us move and also set up computers as we get them into the classroom and so forth. We've used them before, helping us put the new teacher machines in last year, and they worked great for us. And we teamed them up with one of our technicians, and they learn something, and we get some real good labor out of that as well. So we're excited about that.
Do
Mr.
they
Hensley at the high school.
Do they earn credit? I mean, that is a really exciting.
They don't earn credit, but they will make some money.
Earn a little money.
So that's-
And experience.
It's good-
They would just
good
need to sign up for an internship.
We're also using some Ivy Tech interns as well. We've had 2 last year that we used. One is Mr. Hazelbaker on the back, that's now an employee of ours, but we've asked for 4 Ivy Tech interns to help us this summer as well. So,
Gee, look at this practical
But you can see how positive what we're doing here.
Yes.
The local contractors putting tax money back in the city, having high school students help us. It's uplifting, everything we're
Summer
doing.
jobs aren't all
Do
that
you
easy
have
to
any
come by.
jobs for old retired? Paying jobs.
Yeah, that would be nice, wouldn't it? Thank you, Mr. Mace.
I know some available people.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm impressed with the details, the model classroom and all of those things. That's,
You gonna go make that phone call?
Oh, yes.
7 o'clock will be here before you know it.
oh dear.
Okay, let's move on to the daily school schedule.
I'd also like to thank Mr. Hamilton for being on standby back there.
Absolutely.
Thank you,
That's
Mr.
great.
Hamilton.
Daily schedule here is, we've been discussing this for some time. If you recall, during our forums that where we talked about the need for some kind of a master plan, almost every session we were asked to investigate the possibility of flipping the high school and the elementary. The purpose for that was that we oftentimes have families who rely on some of the older students to be there in the evenings when the students come home from the elementary, and that's not been the case. We've also had in previous years, I think the high school has kind of gotten used to this, but for the last several years, we've had concerns from the high school about getting students to athletic events late, and in some cases, so late that they haven't had any warm-up before they hit the field. We have had some problems result from that. So it's not that any high school student was anxious to see an earlier schedule, but what we've done, we've created...
We also heard multiple people concerned about the littlest kids being out waiting for the bus the earliest.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
Well, to me, that was the number one reason.
That's been a really
Yes.
basic criticism of our current schedule, that we have elementary students, kindergarten students who stand in the dark in the dead of winter and a lot into the spring. This does not eliminate that totally, but it cuts way down on the likelihood that there will be students standing in the dark from elementary schools. What we've done, we have started the school day at the high school and the intermediate buildings about 40 minutes earlier than they currently start. I've had some concern by some people saying, well, we remember when we did this, it was to address research that said that we should be starting later for high school students and adolescents. And I've read that research too, and that research says that they should start much later.
10 o'clock.
10:30. That's when we start. So I think it was good that we made an effort to try to address the research, but really it's
unrealistic.
40 minutes is not that big
Well,
a
and
deal.
we weren't able to, like you said, start late enough to actually
That's right.
get the impact.
The research is there, and we don't dispute it, but our day right now is early by that standard. So what we're doing is looking at this high school and intermediate schedule. The elementary schedule then would result in a later arrival time for students and a later dismissal time. 3:30 is when the student day would end at the elementary, with teachers' day end at 3:35. Tuesdays, notice, we would still provide some time for staff development. It's a close schedule. Notice that the buses run within 50 minutes of the other. But Mr. Coddington has looked at this. He's examined it with our transportation people. It's doable. Does that mean every single day, every single Tuesday, we will have buses just exactly where they're supposed to be at the elementaries? We may be off a couple times, but this is doable, and they believe it's something we could work with. This is a daily schedule, and as such, it's not necessary that it have board approval. But I wanted to bring it to the board. You're welcome to approve that if you would like, but I would also like to hear your comments.
I forwarded to Dr. Borf some concerns from talented singers at the high school about the 0-hour chamber choir. Do we have a resolution to that?
We really
or-
don't have a resolution to that just yet. I spoke to the author of the letter. By the way, that letter was beautifully written by that student. And we talked just a little bit about that. There will be a little summit that we're going to have on that. I'm not so sure that the course cannot be built within the regular student day. The problem will be the schedules of the students, whether those currently, because what this 0 hour, has no competing course. And so any student who wants to be a part of that can be a part of it.
Could they practice for 30 minutes? I thought they could start 10 minutes early, 10 till 7, and...
Well, there might be a number of options
Yeah.
that could come out.
Well, I noticed that at the elementary level, there is a span of time between when the teacher day begins and when the student day begins, but that's not so at the high school and intermediate schools.
Right.
So could you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. At the elementary, their prep times tend to be brief, I shouldn't say brief, but they tend to be shorter than those at the high school and the intermediate buildings. What we were trying to do was to find some time within the day for teachers to have common prep time. This would be so that if we are trying to do, and I hate to throw out some education jargon, but we've often talked about having small professional learning communities. These would be groups of teachers coming together on a regular basis for professional development. That's rather difficult right now for us to do because they don't have common planning time of this length and duration. This would provide that time. Now, does that mean that every single day of the week elementary teachers would be involved in common planning together? No, it probably wouldn't. There still are those supervisory options and other types of meetings that go on. But this would be an option for those teachers. Now, at the high school and the intermediate schools, they will still have those more expansive lengths of time during which they have prep. Even in the intermediate, the 5 and 6, we're still looking at that kind of coverage.
So will it be a common time where several fifth grade teachers or whatever their team consists of will be able to be together, or at the high school?
Probably can't be the entire fifth grade or the entire.
But a team of.
It looks very doable.
And what about at the high school, like ninth grade English teachers? Will they have a common time?
Mrs. Wolpe always tries to put those kinds of prep times together. Doesn't always work out because of the way the course demand falls. But that's what they're trying to do.
Suzanne?
Yeah, a couple things I just need clarification on, and I have heard some concerns from a couple folks that I want to share. A couple parents I've talked to are concerned that now basically their students are going to school for an extra hour because of this sort of early, like they're getting, the elementary especially.
That's not the case.
Okay, so they're getting, okay, help me understand. I guess my concern is for the parents that work.
Yeah.
Are we keeping that in mind? Help me, Misty, because we.
At the beginning of the day.
The daycare needed before.
Yeah, I guess that's
Yeah.
what, are we putting, are we shifting the trade-off? I know, and is there, is there anything, have you talked about any of that as far as the trade-off and as alternatives? Because when it's at the end of the day, we have some fantastic alternatives regarding Boys and Girls Club and some of the other sort of aftercare stuff. And I just want to make sure we're sensitive to that sort of, are we leaving that gap at the beginning of the day now, and what are we offering?
Well, we are aware of that.
Talk with our partners and that kind of
the
stuff.
partners will, once we set this schedule, then we know what we're working with, and some of our partners have already begun asking questions.
Yeah.
So those conversations can now begin. There may even be some options for remediation and enrichment that we would like to explore too. But those conversations haven't developed any set options at this point. But I don't see why that can't be a feature of our program, unless cost becomes an issue.
Well, and then the other part of that, I guess, is no matter what we decide or how it works, as we communicate this out to the families, previous to doing that, we need to make sure we communicate with the partners so that that can be included in the communication out to the families to say, we know this is a shift. Here are some people who have been great partners of ours who can help you. You see what I'm saying? I mean, making sure that that's in the communication out to the families. Because while I still think we need to do this, I want to make sure we're not putting people in a difficult spot.
And you did communicate with, like, the Boys and Girls Club and the...
Well, I think they're all aware that we're looking at a different schedule. I don't know that they have seen exactly what you're looking at.
Well, and I mean, I know what their intent is to support the student. I mean, that's always been their
But that's a change for
mission.
them
But
also.
they would have to change the way they do business. So I guess I would hope as soon as we can to communicate with them.
Correct.
But like I said, then also communicating those availabilities out to the families and saying, don't forget, because they're, the family that doesn't have an older student waiting at home to greet the younger student, here's a really great alternative at the Boys and Girls Club. And I think I'm not representing the parents' comment that we had earlier, but I think her point was, if I work at a job at 8 o'clock, I guess maybe I'm missing it, because she was really commenting about, or her thought was like, it kind of seems like now my student's going to be with someone else for an extra hour.
Pat? Well,
And then Jeff.
mine is a little more specific about that. Frankly, guys, some of the school systems around us that are growing students have childcare before and after school.
Yeah, I know.
And, I mean, I think we have to be, Linda mentioned that not too long ago, that we have to be, if we want to be competitive, we have to meet the needs that are out there.
Have we looked at anything about
how do
that?
we
and
go about
what would
that?
that even?
We haven't set this time yet.
Yeah, I know.
So,
but
we haven't gotten
I know.
serious about this until tonight, talking to you about it. We wanted your reaction to it. And yes, Misty will probably be talking to all of our partners about these schedules.
Well, and I want to refresh our memory, too. This isn't just one more change. We have at the beginning, as we talked about the master plan, this was always in the mix as far as when we talked about having to compact and how we needed to do that to be efficient. It was always a piece. But until you actually do the compacting, it's very difficult to talk about the schedule. And it kind of seems like it's like, oh my gosh, one more thing, we're going to change the schedule. It was really always on the plate. And so I just want to remind us.
And I also have to let you know that it was very difficult to do this with the creative arts program. We have a dynamic balance with our creative arts arrangement now, because you have different players moving through the different buildings, and the schedules have to interplay in different ways too. So if we were to reverse this at this point, it would probably be weeks before we could redo the creative arts schedule.
Jeff? The other thing, too, through the master planning process, when we were meeting with groups of people, this is one of the things that we heard over and over and over from parents.
Really,
so
we knew we needed to be responsive to that. Jeff?
Well, I'll be honest with you, when I first saw the schedule, I was really kind of shocked. My first initial impression was, wow, early. And I've already expressed some of these concerns with Dr. Bohr on Monday. One is I want to make sure that we track tardies. I'm afraid that for both employees and especially those employees who have children, I'm just concerned that when you have a teacher day begin at 7:15 and student drop off at 7:15. And like you said earlier, you mentioned the research says start later. I look at this from a parent having two kids go through school, and I just think, man, that is just too early. I personally think that. But I guess the question I have with that, there's two other things that go with that. One is the 5 minutes time at the end of the day between the teacher and the student, I think, is going to be a problem. You're going to have teachers running out the door before the kids are even pulling away from the buildings on the school bus.
What is it now? How much?
Now, not all teachers, because I know most of them work well past their assigned time, but I think that's going to be a problem. I think it's going to make assistance with students getting assistance with teachers and maybe extra tutoring help. That may be a problem. I don't know. These are just gut reactions. But I'd like to talk about the high school schedule or the intermediate schedule with the flex time. A comment was made that there was some capacity possibly built in for there to come back later at the high school level and maybe have some kind of an alternative program. I guess I'm more concerned with, I just want to make sure, I realize athletics is important. I'm not trying to take anything away from athletics, but athletics supports about a third of our students at the high school. I think the last time we had a count was like 600 students were involved in athletics in some form or fashion, so, and it's not all year.
And it's not just athletics either, there's lots of
I
other
just want to make sure that
after-school
when we're doing the schedule, maybe it would be, why not do a 10 o'clock schedule now? I mean, if students are involved in athletics, then they could choose the earlier schedule. I'm just a little...
That's actually
what
his-
we're talking
I was going
about.
to say, that's actually
So,
your
That
point.
is what we're talking about.
Well, but that's not on this.
No,
Well, you
because we
couldn't.
don't have that, we don't have that to offer yet.
He's saying it's early on this. This is just kind of a...
The 10 o'clock flex piece is one that would take the student day also beyond the 2:45 by about 2 more hours, too. So
Right, which I would expect that.
yeah, you've got that in, and what we haven't done yet is make sure that we understand that the students are willing to commit to that. The majority of students at the high school, through a survey, told us they would rather start at 7:30.
And get done earlier.
That's right.
Yeah.
So we
I've heard
we
that
do
too.
know that
But
piece.
Working after school.
I know two
while
kids that
taking
wouldn't want that.
I wouldn't want to, but given the option of starting later and getting out later, that's, I think,
Yeah, I think
that's
you're
the
right.
key.
Well, you know, and I'm not trying to debate. I don't know who the surveys were, the numbers. I mean, and that opinion is going to change from family to child to situation. I
And
understand
that was just at the high school.
But I just, my initial reaction was the 5-minute separation time at the end of the day between the students and the teachers, and I just think it's too early.
Let me address that too, because we had thought about that as well, and we took it to discussion. At one point, it was going to be almost the way it worked out. There was no separation, and so we talked about that and talked about the length of time that we would need, that we were being responsible. And if you examine the departure time for teachers now, if we were to tell them students leave at 2:15, would teachers be leaving at 2:15? Most of them don't.
Right.
Most of them are there well after, not just 5 minutes, not 10 minutes, but considerably longer after that. And so we talked about what would be reasonable. And with the REA's assistance, this is what we happened upon, and it actually lengthens the teacher day by 5 minutes. And they were very willing to agree that that was reasonable.
Is this something that you could throw up on a survey on our webpage, just to voice your opinion? Do we have that kind of time?
Well, the frequently asked questions will be a part of that. I mean, that's where they can do that.
Suzanne? How does this compare to now? If we were just to flip-flop what we're doing now, how does it compare, and why?
For the 5th and 6th
are there
graders, it
changes?
won't be much of a change at all.
Okay.
Because they're currently in that schedule. I'd have to get the schedules side by side.
Because elementary or middle school or high school, middle school don't start at 8:40 right now. They start at 8:26.
They started about 8.
Or something like that.
I think of
Or was it
8:10.
8:15? I thought it was 8:26 or something crazy.
That's the high school, isn't it?
So why that change, I guess, is my question. Is that transportation related? Is that helping,
There
making sure?
was a length of time between the two schedules that we had to have for buses to run efficiently. Because remember, we're not running 2 routes. We're actually running 3
Okay.
and 2 simultaneously. So we are using a good number of buses. And in order to make that happen, we had to have an extension of time between the two. That was, and we didn't want to run the student day for the elementary past 3:30. So start doing the
I guess
start doing
I
the
need
math,
to
and
be
that's
more
where-
direct in asking my question. Is the trade-off for not having middle school and high school kids on the same buses this time frame?
It very well may be.
Because, I mean, I know that we heard there were some concerns about that. And so this dual intermediate / high school bus route, does that require more of a gap?
It does require a particular gap.
So that would
Yeah.
explain the 8:40 school day beginning at the elementary then, probably, at least in some part?
I would guess. If Bob were here, he could tell you the particulars on that, because he's actually run those
'Cause I guess-
scenarios.
To me, that seems late, kind of late, and I can understand, even though this drop-off time and all that is sort of around 8 o'clock, but I began my workday when I was working parent at 8 o'clock. So there's now all of a sudden sort of this 15-minute gap or 20-minute gap of when I need to be to work and when my kid needs dropped off, and I wouldn't, so I can see where the working parents are coming from, and what do you do with 20 minutes? But the trade-off...
It's pretty tight when you look at that. We're dropping students off at the high school and intermediate schools at 7:15
Mhm.
and picking elementary students up at 7:20.
Right. Oh, I know.
Well,
I know
that's-
it's very tight. I get that. And I get why
now,
we
that's
have
not the case with all the buses, but with some of them, it is going to be a very short period of time before we're back on the road.
When is drop-off, do we know when drop-off of high school students is right now? Oh, no, not high school, elementaries, the ones that, what time does the elementary day start now? Is it 8?
No.
They start at
7:45, except for Star.
Okay.
For Star, it's a little later.
Well, and if you do the flex time at high school, how much more will that cost transportation-wise?
We have 5 buses available, so we'd have to calculate based on the availability of those buses, the drivers, and the length of time those buses run.
So will that interfere with things that when we take kids to IB Tech, IU East field trips?
Good question.
Oh, yeah, that would be a factor.
Mhm.
Most definitely, it would be a factor in that.
Linda?
Well, a couple things. With the elementary schedule, it looks as though we're going to impact parents both at the morning and at the end of the school day for working parents.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's a concern. And also, I guess I get concerned about the amount of time that students are going to be up before they actually start school. Are they going to be tired before they even really get in the classroom? Because especially for the kids who are picked up at a bus or picked up by the bus, that happens at 7:20. They don't start school for another hour and 20 minutes. So they've probably been up, I would think, at least 45 minutes before they get on the bus. I don't know. I just, I know from experience, especially with our elementary children, that some of their best learning time is in the morning. And when you get later in the day, they fade quickly. And then I hope that if this schedule is adhered to, that we think about our lunch times and perhaps tweaking, because certainly some of them go to lunch at 10:30 right now.
We can't make them quite so early, can we?
So, they'll be going to lunch practically before they get there. And so that's, I don't know whether that's been a consideration or not, but
Has to be, yeah.
so there are things that need to be considered that way. But,
Wish I could remember
and if you all haven't been in an elementary classroom at y'all in the afternoon, you need to visit because it's
comatose.
well, it is. It's a tough time, and sometimes. So, I'm not saying learning doesn't go on, but I don't know that it's the optimal time for those students to learn.
So I assume you'll come back to us with more information about the concerns that have been brought up?
We'll address those concerns, but at some point, we have to...
You have to
we-
make a call. I
decision.
get
Yeah,
that.
we have to go.
Just maybe, I guess, in the frequently asked questions, explaining how you ended up there, I think is the big thing, and explaining that there are trade-offs, and explaining, that we heard loud and clear that people don't want the little ones out the earliest. We heard that, and that's why we're heading this direction.
Maybe, I guess, and I think the paradox here is we had to meet needs of teachers being able to collaborate.
Well,
That's huge. We said that.
Well, and shame on us if we didn't garner that out of a schedule shift, too. I mean, that's the other thing. It's a golden opportunity to collect that. So if we didn't do that, that would be a shame.
So have we had, how long has this been out, this, just on the board?
We've had discussion, and then this is the first public release beyond the school.
So we don't know as a whole how our employees are looking at this.
No, we don't.
They haven't had a chance to actually talk about it and give input and so forth, as well as our community.
I'm not so sure that they haven't, but anyway, it's not been an objective that we've put it out there and to get feedback.
And the trade-off is we don't want the intermediate and elementary on the same bus because of the difference in age. Is that?
It's actually the intermediate and the high school that was the...
That was the intermediate and the high school.
That we don't want on the same bus.
Parents don't. Well, now we don't, middle school and high school aren't on the same bus, are they?
But they're running at the same time.
But we looked at a schedule where the elementary and intermediate were combined?
No.
We don't have enough buses.
That's too many kids at the same schedule.
That was the intermediate and the high school. See, a lot of high school students don't
use the
ride
transportation.
Well, that's the reason why I asked that question, because then I would think if you're thinking it would only take 3 buses or 4 buses or 5, but whatever, at the high school for one shift, then it would be, if all we're transporting is high school students, it would be easier to run 2 shifts.
Yeah, the problem is they're all over town. None are not in compacted
And I know
areas.
Bob said they've spent countless hours examining every single...
From February on,
Yeah.
every Saturday, they spent on this project.
So will the same buses be used at the elementary as are used for the high school and intermediate?
There will be some. Mm-hmm.
Well, I'm just thinking about how this is going to also impact opportunities for field trips, because obviously at the high school, they're going to have to be there much earlier, and so that would impact field trips, I would think.
Well, remember, now that we use Sodrel,
They have their other...
they have a fleet of buses beyond ours. If we require field trips, they can get additional buses.
So it won't hurt dual credit, and there's buses that run for that. I don't know which ones, but...
Shouldn't.
Shouldn't?
No.
Okay.
So we don't have enough buses to run an elementary and intermediate route where both schools get on the bus together.
Correct.
One route picks up both the elementary and intermediate.
That's right.
Wow.
Well, because you just added now to the routes that we're already running, your 7th and 8th, too, because they're currently running on the high school schedule, right?
That's
Well,
right.
we got over 50 buses, almost 60 buses. That's 60 students a bus, so that's 3,600 students.
It's the routes
Right.
more. It's the routes more than the actual seats, though. I would imagine.
I'm not sure exactly how that would break down. In a school system of 2,000, we had 57 buses.
Right, and we have approximately...
47, I'm sorry, 47
It
buses.
would just be interesting. That surprises me. I'll do the math. I'll shoot you in the mouth.
Really? Surprise.
Well,
Okay.
and also remember that we committed to this community that we would not do anything to bring those populations together.
Well, that was the
Right.
question I
Yeah, me
started
too.
off with. Is the reason for this for elementary and intermediate not to be together, or is it for intermediate or elementary and high school not to be
I
together?
wonder what
That's
the
different.
scenario looks
All
like when
three.
the intermediate and the high school are riding the same buses. Is what I'd like to know.
But then you would
Intermediate and
have,
high school.
but then you'd have 5th graders with the high school students.
That was the one that,
I know, but I'm
I was
just
gonna say, I
saying,
thought that-
it would be nice to see, could that change anything time-wise, so that you could tell people, here's how we could fix this or make it a little bit better for you, but it would require us, the trade-off would be 5 through 12 need to be on the same buses. I don't know if it fixes anything. I'm just saying it might be worth saying.
Or 1 through 8 on the same bus.
I have no idea.
They'd start at different
They
times.
don't.
That's the thing with 1 through, at this point, 1 through 8.
I'm sure they
start-
ran those scenarios, and we'll have to.
May not have to.
We should have Skyped Bob here.
So, so you're saying also why, and the question is,
If intermediate
is there any
elementary
reason
were-
why we would start intermediate and elementary at the same time? But what you say is there's not enough buses, and it's probably more about routes than seats.
Yeah.
That's what I'm guessing. But
And parents were concerned about bus stops.
Yes.
As, you know, as
Right.
well as buses. So,
and I'm not saying that's not valid. I'm just saying
Just looking at all the
helping people
different
understand
scenarios.
the trade-off. The trade-off to not having 5 through 12 on the same buses is you have to run 2 simultaneous routes, which means you need about double the buses at a particular time. So
And not only do you run the buses simultaneously, but you can't use the same bus stops.
right. So it really is separate,
That's
total
right.
separate routes. And
It's very complicated.
and I understand that, and I just hope that the families understand we're trying to hear what they're saying and still accomplish the sort of must-haves that we heard, and so helping them understand the trade-off for not
I
having
think
them.
helping them understand, but also helping them with their needs
Clearly,
is
absolutely.
the key,
Yep.
because, you can understand, but if you still have a need
Right.
to have your child being watched, then, that goes a little further,
And it's seeing that's, I think about myself. I drove my kids to school every day because I could, because the times worked out, and I could swing by school, I could drop them off, and I could go to work. That worked out.
And I think a
didn't
lot
have-
of people do that right
and I
now.
wouldn't have to worry about leaving for work and having them sitting in the bus stop and not knowing whether they got picked up. That worked for me. So I guess it's just, helping people understand the alternatives and that kind of thing, that we understand some people have to be to work at 8. That's why we're trying to do the bus pickup at 7:20. So,
Well, I would encourage people that are listening to this, if they do have questions, to go to the website and ask them, because you do get back with everyone on the website with answers. Okay, let's move on to frequently asked questions.
Well, as of today, we don't have any, or at this very moment, but I'm sure tomorrow morning.
Well, I have a question. I have a question that I'm frequently asked, just about every time I run into parents. It's about the cabin at Garrison, and I know you haven't made any firm decisions yet, but can you just reassure the public that we will be utilizing it and it will be taken care of?
Came up at the parent leader conference that we had the other night, committee meeting. And what we're doing is putting together a committee. We will put together a committee to help us determine the future of the cabin. I don't think anyone's idea is to neglect that cabin in any way. It's served a very important role in our curriculum at Garrison and in some of the other schools, and it will continue to. But exactly how that will be,
I just think they just want reassurance that we're not going to let it sit there and...
no, we're not planning to let it sit. We have had some very generous offers to help us do something with it. And before that offer is addressed, I think we should be looking at other options, and I think the best way to do that is to let some people who are interested in that come together and help us discuss that.
Great.
Are we going to have a separate group for the caboose?
I think we should.
Okay.
Do you get a lot of feedback on the caboose? I didn't know if they
Well, I
used it.
think there's a difference there because the
It's not
cabin
in as
has
good as
been being utilized, whereas the caboose has not necessarily been utilized
But it's a
lately.
fixture that we...
But it's still something that we need to tend to.
Yes.
And you never know who might be in need of a caboose.
An antique caboose, I guess.
See the little red engine or something.
It could be the portable.
Okay, on to our press conference. Brian, does anyone have any questions out there press-wise? No questions, okay. We've done the consent items, so now we'll move on to public commentary. Is there anyone out there who would like to speak?
We do have Beth Norwalt.
Who's been chomping at the bit.
Hi, Bethany.
Sort
of. I just wanted to say something about the transportation that we're talking about right now. You have no reason to know this about me, but I'm from a very large metropolis about 30 minutes outside of Philadelphia, and my dad was in the Army, and I was in several large cities. Everywhere I've ever been, the older kids start first, and the younger kids start second. And there is daycare before, and there is daycare after.
Mm-hmm.
And there is never the older kids mixed with the younger kids on the bus. I'm just saying, it all comes down to safety. Now, it will help, you know, it could be a gold mine for the daycares in the business around here. And with your unemployment rate, I don't think it's really going to be that big of a problem. That's all I really wanted to say.
Thank you for coming up.
Thanks.
Okay, follow up on old business. Superintendent and board reports, reflections, and celebrations. We have so many celebrations in May. Does anyone want to talk about any of them?
I'd like to mention the parents as leaders, the PAL Academy. They had a number of graduates last week or so, one sitting in the audience, Bethany. But it's a great program, and it really encourages our parents to take a part in the schools, to learn how to use Power School to keep up with their child's progress, and also how to work in their schools, how to take leadership positions. And I sincerely hope this program grows, because I think it's a good venue for our parents to have and to learn more about our schools and how to interact with the schools. So,
other celebrations? Any over on this side? Suzanne?
Yeah, there's several, and I know we kind of sort of alluded to the open house at the high school,
Right.
but that was just so fantastic, and I want to thank everyone who had anything to do with that. And what I noticed was the students and the teachers, but the students especially, the ownership that they were taking that night, and the energy was really terrific.
And then having Aaron Gruel speak
well,
afterwards.
yeah,
was-
that even Aaron, I should have even brought that up, but that was phenomenal. And then Aaron, I was also, many of us were there, able to listen to Aaron talk to a group of community leaders too, and it
She's
was equally
dynamic.
phenomenal. But then the best part was when the student stood up and talked about her personal transformation. So that was just great all around. And then sort of as a connection to that, Friday, the entire high school population is going on a field trip. Now think about that. Talk about field trips. The enormity of that feat alone is worth celebrating, but the fact that they all are going to get to go watch the Bully documentary at the theater together. And the reason why they're able to do that is because the high school students pulled together and got it to come to our community first. So that's a topic that comes up often in community conversation, is bullying, and that bullying is an issue, and our students are stepping up, and I think that's through the roof great. Lastly, the conversations that we had about the students working on our buildings and doing the demolition and doing construction and working over the summer. Another question that I often get, and I don't think it was a myth that was busted at the high school, but it probably should have been, I hear often, is anyone teaching vocational education anymore? Does anyone do that? I mean, whenever you have conversations with people who aren't currently in schools, they'll say that. Is anyone even doing that? Not everyone's going to go to college. I hear that a lot. And I say, yes, it's not your grandpa's shop class, but definitely yes. And so the demonstration of that tonight was pretty phenomenal, and I can't list all the programs, but the fact that we have a building and construction trade an automotive, drafting, computers, and health care fields and pre-engineering, and it just, I guess I just want to make that very clear in a public way that yes, people are still teaching vocational quote-unquote classes. And when you hear career center or career education, that's what that means. So.
Well, along with the open house, too, I would first like to know how many trips Dr. Borf made to the tower.
That's a good question.
Because the tower was open to the public, and it was really the kids that were wanting to go up in the tower.
It's a popular
some of us
tour.
older folks remember the tower is a very, very special place. Where
I've still yet to go
our
up there.
victories were always.
Well, I know Ray Wilby said when she was a cheerleader that you would run up to the tower after a game and ring the bell.
If you won.
If you won,
If you
yes.
won. And that way the whole community knew that you had won the
Right.
game for that night. So how many trips did you make?
Made at least 10 trips.
Wow.
At least 10, and there were up to a dozen, maybe 13 or 14 people that would go up at a time.
And then you still had a line waiting.
Oh, yeah, we turned
had
about
to turn
50
away
people
50
away.
people. We just ran out of time.
Yeah.
That could be a great fundraiser.
That's what I've heard.
But you have to take
It was fun. FUN.
But didn't they raise a little money, too?
Yes, they did.
Well, I would like to again celebrate each and every one of our teachers. And what I said before I read the proclamation, that you are the heart of Richmond Community Schools. You are the stability. You are the everything to our many students. And again, thank you from the bottom of my heart for everything that you provide for our kids.
Well said.
Here, here. Ring that bell.
Okay, now we're on to a review.
Good note.
Yeah.
Review of the tentative meeting agenda for the next meeting.
The action items include receipt of donations and food service bid recommendations. Also, we'll be discussing the Uniform Code of Student Conduct, maybe even acting on that. Normally we like to bring that to you at this meeting and then act on it the next one. The master planning reports. Consent items would include the normal customary items, but also the Richmond Art Museum user agreement, which we are bringing to the board every year. Monthly financial report. And it would not surprise me to see other items on there that's not listed just yet.
Okay. Is there anything else before we wrap it up? Suzanne?
No, I'll wait. I'll save it.
Thank you. I have